Well, welcome to the broadcast today. And Joe and I planned this, I think, maybe a week ago. It was not a long time to say to say it frankly, but today I have Joe Caruso with me, and we thought we would go live because there was been some interesting conversations happening in some of the mutual groups that we're a part of on Clubhouse and obviously on LinkedIn. But before we get into the conversation, I just want to introduce Joe Caruso. He has been in franchising for 30 years. He has developed franchises, common names that you know, brands that have stretched across internationally, right, Joe? And
Yes, yeah. I
nationally.
mean, both Hardee's and Carl's Jr. and Glory Jean's Coffee are international brands that I've been with, and Mrs. Fields. Everybody knows Mrs. Fields cookies.
Yep.
Quite a few different brands.
I just grabbed a couple of Mrs. Fields cookies and I went to New Jersey to do a extreme racing experience. That was a lot of fun. And at the mall right down the street from where we stayed, there was a Mrs. Fields store. So good. I don't see them in Massachusetts though anymore like I used to.
Yeah, I mean, Mrs. Fields is in a lot of non-traditional locations, but they were primarily a mall-based brand, and malls even before the pandemic were having their challenges, and they still continue to have a lot of challenges. So I think we're going to see fewer malls in our future, and we're going to see some of the really luxury malls continue to do well, but anything that is second tier or third tier, we're going to see that redeveloped into other uses.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see the rise of, as you said, luxury malls or like living space malls, right? Where they have like luxury apartments attached to the shopping centers, attached to restaurant and dining, attached to like a wellness corner inside of an overall developed land space, right? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
lifestyle centers, with mixed use, apartment living, usually higher end. Yeah, I mean, when I lived in Salt Lake City, we had a beautiful one, Gateway, just a outdoor mall, and was very attractive, very well done, and if the Apple store is there, it's probably a good place.
Right, exactly. Well, and I think it kind of goes to user experience nowadays, which is just simply creating destination spaces for people to actually want to go and spend 3 or 4 hours in, versus just going to one store and kind of getting ice cream and leaving. Now people kind of go there and they work out, and then they go shopping at Whole Foods, and then they go to to the Apple store because they have a appointment at the Genius Bar, after that, and they meet a friend for coffee, and so that one workout turns into like a 3-hour experience nowadays.
Oh no, I think you're right about that. I think that's the essence of lifestyle centers, and that's why they become so popular. I mean, what they've really done is reinvented Main Street, but they put it in with brands that we all love because
Right.
I mean, I grew up in a small town, and Main Street in our town, was horrible, and then it became fantastic, and turns out to be one of the best small towns in the country, and a very vibrant downtown. But that has not been the case for many, many, many other small cities. For them to be able to do something like they've done in Corning, New York, where I grew up.
Yeah. Yeah, that, and I just noticed that, and that you have these developers that have these plans that are just kind of swooping in and saving malls that have either recently gone under or are about to go under, and they're transforming them wholesale. And
Well,
it's pretty cool to see.
what's going to be interesting is for those malls that are in the A or A plus category that had a Sears in it or had a Macy's, and the landlord has taken back over those properties, how they will redevelop them. Some of them are carving them up,
Hmm.
and some of the space, like for a MELD gym,
Yep.
you don't necessarily need to have the class A spot in terms of foot traffic because you're more of a destination. Um,
Right.
So and Sears are a pretty big footprint, and so are the Macy's. And there's going to be office space in there. I don't really see a lot of living space put in it, but never say never to that. So there's going to be opportunities for that here near me in Bel Air, Maryland. They're actually demolishing the Sears at the end of the mall that has already been redeveloped into a semi-lifestyle center, and I'm not sure what's going in there, but it is probably going to be something like a Whole Foods will go into that space, because that definitely is a Class A B plus mall, but it's in a very good town. It's the county seat, and it's very strategically located.
It's actually quite genius because essentially what they've done is they've taken the city concept where, any city in, at least in America, Eastern city that's on the East Coast, every block has the exact same thing. It has a coffee shop, it has a gym, it has you know, a luxury living, it has all these things. And so people even in like Boston don't have to travel 2 towns over to get to anywhere because they have everything that's like built into their block. And just to kind of plop down like a complete development that can satisfy everybody in the geographic area is it's unbelievably smart. And given that the excessive need for housing, both luxury and moderate and low income housing in America right now, there is a huge market for that coming up.
Yeah, and I think for franchising, it's interesting. It's gonna this is this kind of creative destruction of Sears and Kmart and a lot of the other big box. It opens up the door for other things to develop. I mean, you see a lot of the franchise trampoline parks going into some of these spaces because they're big, they'll accommodate them, and the use for even a Walmart that has been relocated, they're great opportunities. Um, and that space is very attractively priced, as opposed to if you want to get a 1,300 to 1,800 square foot end cap on a strip center, you're going to be paying through the nose because those spaces are in extremely high demand,
Right.
and there is no value finding, even though we've had a lot of businesses go out of business during the pandemic, and we'll continue to see some businesses go out. But those premier spaces, especially the ones that are suitable for a Starbucks or a restaurant with outdoor seating and plenty of parking. Those are going to be in demand and really hard to get your hands on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this whole pandemic and business closing thing is happening in waves, right? I think there was like, wave one, which was the most immediate businesses that just simply figured that they couldn't survive the pandemic, and then wave two was as the cash started running out and they were already closed, they decided not to reopen again. I think wave three is going to be those businesses that didn't have runway after they've reopened and they haven't had the customers come back. And I think that's going to be the longest lasting wave that we'll kind of see for the next few months. It'll be interesting to see what industries kind of shake out when it comes to that.
Well, you're fortunate that you're in a business where people have to. It's a destination. People have to come to you.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if when you were doing your business planning, you looked at bricks and mortar versus some of the mobile gyms that are out there. And you know, I'm not, the jury's still out for me in terms of the mobile gyms. I don't see how that they scale very high. It seems yeah, the retention of of users, of members for those would be a challenge, but I could be wrong about that. And there's a lot of data out there on what Orange Theory has done, what Planet Fitness has done, which are worlds apart in terms of their offering in terms of fitness. But what was your experience when you were doing your business planning on what you would develop with MELD?
Yeah. So you make a good point about the mobile gym. So there is a franchise out there. because we're both in franchising, we will keep the names of the brands for this conversation anonymous. But there is a franchise concept out there that includes, mobile, mobile training and mobile offerings, mobile fitness. And the issue with that, as I see it, is that the life changes that occur at home don't allow a person to actually um, adapt to those life changes. So, for instance, I see it as it starts off really well at the beginning when a person has a low level of commitment. They have no kids, they don't have a dog, they have the same job, all this other stuff. The issue is, however, though, when you need to leave home to try to kind of ingratiate yourself into a different experience type, because you want to go to a third place that is less stressful just for a little bit, you don't have that option because it's coming to you. So you're always kind of at home. It's the same thing to me. It's not exactly like having a Peloton bike at home or having exercise equipment at home, but it's something akin to that because you're not leaving the jurisdiction of your actual property. So I think that there's some psychology there. So so I thought about that piece. In terms of retention, our retention is really high for a lot of different reasons. Our average member stays about 18 months, which is a long time. It's about 3 times longer than the average attrition rate or the retention rate for a health and fitness franchise in general across the country, whether they are franchises or whether they are mom and pop shops. Our members stay 18 months or more. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we offer them an affordable experience and that focuses on them in particular, engages them, and it allows them to be able to also be held accountable. And it's systematic. And there's a lot of places that say they offer this, but then they overcrowd their sessions, they overcrowd their offering, and then it ends up turning into something resembling an Orange Theory. And not that there's anything wrong with that business model, because I think there are plenty of younger people who want that. I think that as you scale into the age range of people who are more professional, who have limited time, and who want more premium results, then they're going to be looking for something that we have to offer. However, the largest growing sector, believe it or not, I was shocked by this, of small group personal training in America is Gen Z. And so that's an interesting little tidbit right there.
Hey, on what category of gym does MELD fall into? Are you high intensity training, or are you mean? And don't mistake me for someone who knows a lot about the different kinds of gym applications and CrossFit and these things. I know the names. I go to the gym, but I do the step mill and I do the treadmill and I do circuit training. That's all I do. I mean, and that's enough.
You stay in pizza shape, Joe.
Yeah,
pizza shape enough. You stay in good shape to continue to make pizzas on a regular basis.
Well, I have to be able to continue to eat them. People will be happy if I continue to make them. I will only be happy if I get to continue to eat them.
Right. Yeah. So you have okay. So there are different types of fitness offerings. So let's stick to the franchise offerings out there because that makes the most sense for the sake of this conversation. So the first one is the big box gym that is franchisable. The most obvious one is Crunch and Gold's Gym, right? Gold's Gym, however, had a lot of restructuring done, and part of their operation was upset by COVID. And I think they're still going through some restructuring even after that. Planet Fitness and Crunch would be also included in something called the Big Box Gym, and Anytime Fitness is more of a mid-size box. So it's about 10,000. They're about 10 to 12,500 square feet, maybe a little more in their biggest club, and then they get a little smaller. Like I think they have a model that goes anywhere between 2,500 to 5,000. So that's kind of like a mid-size facility. Some personal training concepts are about 3,000 to 5,000 square feet as well. So that's the big box gym. You're paying a membership. You get to, essentially what I call rent equipment for your membership. You go in, you work out on your own with little to no guidance, including that introductory that they all throw out there to you. And typically those models have maybe a personal training department built in, where you see the trainers working the floor, engaging the members. So that's kind of like a level one franchise offering. Another level in franchising is what we call like the mid-size, as I mentioned, anytime. And there are other concepts out there that have like this whole 5,000 square foot to like maybe 15 to 20,000 square foot box. That's kind of the mid-size club. Those typically tend to be the players that are in the middle class of monthly membership offerings. UFit would be kind of like in that as well. So we're talking something like a $35 to $55 membership range, kind of the middle class membership offering there. And then you kind of then after that move into boutique style. And so now with the boutique stuff, we're talking about what Exponential has. So, all the offerings that Rumble and their spin offerings, which I can't remember exactly what they're called. You have Stretch Lab that they have. These are like the boutiques that offer somewhere between 20 to 25 or maybe 30 people inside one group session at one time. Because of the size of those classes, they are considered large group or team training, and they're often probably their build outs are probably in the probably like the 7,500 to like 12,000 square foot range. They need typically to break even 3, 4, 500 members, to kind of break even. And like there's like 30 people a class, that kind of thing. And that is also like that can go for like bar classes, all that stuff. And then we are kind of creating a whole new segment and pioneering this segment, which is we are in a boutique personal. We are a boutique personal training franchise, which is personal training focused. It's high touch, service based, almost like high touch in the sense of like a massage. If you think about like a massage of your elements, we are high touch in that we see the same people on a regular basis. They often have memberships. They often come and see the same trainer or coach, whatever you want to call them. We call them fitness coaches. And we see them in a setting of no more than 4 members to 1 coach during one session. So they maintain that personal feel of personal training, but at the same time, we get to leverage how many members that we have working with one coach at one time. And then you can have multiple coaches training a group of 4 in our concept. And so we're kind of pioneering what we call the micro gym facility or the micro studio. And we are that is what our franchise is based on. So taking the small space of 1,000 square feet, and installing a smoothie bar in there, very dedicated members, very specific, customized workouts where members come in and they're getting their needs addressed on a regular basis. So high level of accountability, high level of compliance, high level of uptake into kind of what we're doing. So like in a gym where you might have only 12% of the members, for instance, engage in the smoothie bar, in one of our studios, we're looking at more like 85% of the members engaging, because they are into changing their life and the results and things like that. So there's a lot of reasons why our model works for individuals who are looking to run like more of a high profit business in a low square foot space that's a little more specialized and a little more concentrated on kind of what results and what people want.
And when did MELD first open?
So we first opened in 2014, and I had different iterations of this model over the years prior to that, but in 2014 is when we really kind of hit the ground running and moving this model forward, right? So we realized that small group training was the way to go. We realized that 4 members to 1 coach was our actual number because of the accountability and how the coaches can kind of hone in. And we started to add and build the program and add things that made more sense since then. So we added the smoothie bar component. We added selling supplements to members. We added, and we're looking to add other things too, like meal plan and service. And if a member wants to take it up to the next level, and then our membership price frankly is more than competitive with the local one-on-one training rates across the entire US. So, I mean, because we offer small group training, the members that are coming in are getting it for, less than the cost of what a one-on-one training session would cost with a one personal trainer. But they're also experiencing personal training at a high level because it is personal training. They're getting that like focused attention, So when we started MELD, we didn't intend for it to be a franchise, but it wasn't until I had a great idea during a pandemic, of course, that I was like, well, this would be great for anyone who has a desire to want to improve their community. I just kept on getting feedback from people that were coming in. Is this a franchise? Do you have other locations? I would love to have this in X place where I'm moving or Y place where I'm moving. Would you consider franchising this? You've probably heard this story 1.5 million times, being in franchising for as long as you have. But more importantly, I had systems in place where, look, I didn't have to be, I could be semi-absentee in the corporate location and it's still kind of rocking and rolling, The acid test is, can you go on vacation and you have more business than when you left?
Well, yeah, that's either a pleasant surprise or a rude awakening when you return.
Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully at least you hit the middle ground and you don't get the rude awakening, but you do expect some improved performance if you're growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying.
Right, that's exactly right. So I wanted to ask you, Joe, because we've spoken, on Clubhouse, which is, depending on the size of the group, can be a private conversation, of course, because there's not that many people in there. And now we're on YouTube, and people will see this on LinkedIn. When I started franchising, I noticed a few things. So I noticed the lack in the gap in knowledge of emerging franchisors, the lack in the gap in some cases of people who are of willingness to assist an emerging franchise, or with kind of putting some basic pieces together that would not cost them any money to give advice. Not saying that a person shouldn't pay for advice, but there's some things that are easy enough. Why do you think that there's such a gap in franchising between when a person decides that they want to franchise and who could actually legitimately lead them down the road to a qualified interaction, let's say, with someone who's knowledgeable?
Well, I think there's a number of challenges, and you have to look back to when franchising became more complex in terms of compliance. And, that all happened around 1979 with the advent of the FTC rule on how to sell franchises and what must be done in order to be compliance in the pre-sale of the franchise. So those people that were pioneering in 1979,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are still here. I mean, they're primarily lawyers,
Right.
and and a lot of them are good friends of mine. I was not pioneering in 1979, but not that I'm that far behind them, but I wasn't doing it in '79.
Don't date yourself, Joe.
There's a lot of people that like to make the compliance regimen or compliance regime sound a lot more complicated than it really is. because it's really not that complicated. It's just a matter of learning the rules. So I think there are a lot of people out there that are selling consulting services in different aspects of franchising that like to overcomplicate it, and so that they can generate a fee. Um, I'm with you. I mean, if something is simple, just direct people to where they can actually learn it themselves.
Right.
There are other aspects of franchising that take knowledge and experience, and you need to have that talent associated with your franchise brand if you're the franchisor. And you have two different levels of talent. You have talent at the franchisor level, and you have talent at the franchisee level. That you're going to almost always pay for. You're either going to pay for it directly because you hire somebody to be your VP of franchise sales, or somebody to be your VP of operations as you begin to grow, and it requires investment spending. You're going to spend before you're going to get a return on those kinds of investments. The other way is to use third-party providers that do those kinds of services. I don't want to say for you. I think that is a mistake. The ones that do it with you. And as doing it with you, you're also learning and building a knowledge base on what it takes to grow a franchise system. Because it's not just selling the franchises, which is hard enough. Recruiting franchisees is a difficult job. And the more complicated your franchise offering is, if you're selling a man in the van carpet franchise, that I'm not saying that's easy to sell. I will say it's easier to sell than anything where you have to go out and find a location, sign a lease, and do a build out. That the level of complexity there increases as you move up in investment and the requirements for the operation. You're going to pay for that one way or the other. And what is very telling is that we have 4,000 franchises in North America today.
Yep.
34.2% of them, or 1,378, have 5 units or less. That means some of them have 0. They have no units.
Right.
Because what happened there? Well, they either started with too little capital and were unable to hire the right talent or secure the right third-party talent, or they started with enough capital and they blew it, and now they don't have the capital anymore because they made a series of mistakes. And when you start talking about franchising, you don't get immediate results from your franchise recruitment. You don't get immediate results from openings. You build pipelines, so you can be spending and spending and spending, and not till 18 to 36 months out do you realize, boy, did I make a bonehead mistake 18 months ago or 36 months ago, and I have been on the wrong path for a very, very long time. And correcting that misguided direction that you've gone in is very hard, because one is we all have egos and we don't like to admit we make mistakes. The other is recognizing that you've done it and changing course accordingly to be able to put you on a track that will get you the growth. And I think one of the other things that in franchising that's common is that there's romanticism. Everybody wants to be the next McDonald's. Don't you want to be the next McDonald's or the next Subway? They want to be the next Subway. Well, you know how many times there's been a next McDonald's or a next Subway? Not very much. I mean, yeah, there's been a next McDonald's. It's called Burger King. Yeah, that would be the next McDonald's. Or you could say the next McDonald's was Subway. And in your category, who's going to be the next Planet Fitness? Who's going to be the next Orange Theory? Now, McDonald's certainly has had more bona fides in terms of its long-standing business model. I mean, it has stood the test of time, and I don't think we're going to be losing McDonald's anytime soon. I can't
Right.
say that for some other successful brands today, whether they will stand the test of time. I don't know. I mean, time will tell.
Yeah, it's funny because this is part of what I mean by emerging franchisers and the gap of knowledge, which is that, you know, franchising, as you said, when people romanticize it, the first thing they think about is, so I'm going to start franchising. I'm going to scale across the country. I'll get royalties on this, and then I'm going to go from there. And let me just tell you what I've learned so far. I started franchising, and yeah, the date always changes because, like, when there's no real start to franchising when you start. It's because there's paperwork. It's like there's no hard date, but roughly around February, when we kind of launched, had our sales website up, and so here we are in November. 0 sales of units, which is probably not necessarily abnormal for a first year franchise. But one of the things I've learned is that just because people know you locally does not mean that they actually know you nationally. And you have to have some brand appeal to franchise consultants or brokers in order to give them, put them in a position where they want to sell to your brand. And then of course you also have to appeal to the people who are looking to buy into your brand. And so that kind of brand recognition could take your whole first year to even get on the board with people recognizing who you are. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about using, third-party brokers, it is a much bigger challenge for a startup franchisor to do that, because the franchise brokers are going to have reservations. Some of their reservations are going to be, is this franchise brand going to be around? Do they have any staying power?
Right.
The other is, can the franchisor sell? They won't tell you that, but if
Mhm.
they think that their hard fought and hard earned lead that they turned into a candidate, once they turn them over to the franchisor, are they going to be able to put a deal together? Is an utmost concern for them, because their worry, and it's a realistic worry, that if they turn them over and they have a bad experience, the deal doesn't come together, that candidate walks not only from the deal that was offered to them, but they walk from that franchise broker. And they are
Right.
very concerned about that. And I think that they have a basis for that. Because their other options are, go to a tried and true brand that
Mhm.
sells a lot of franchises through brokers. They know how to close deals and put deals together. They're going to pick them over you. And
Right.
it's nothing against you. They're just choosing their own self-interest over yours,
Of
which
course.
everybody's going to choose their own self-interest over someone else's.
Well, that's right. So let's deconstruct that a little bit because I think this is an important thing to talk about, which is how do you then? Okay, so I want you to give me the flip side of this. So you're the emerging franchisor, and obviously you've clearly stated what stage you're at in this process of growing the franchise, and so the broker is obviously well aware. They're trying to push it anyway. How do you get them? What kind of conversations would you have? What kind of relationship would you establish with them help you help them? So this is this because that's really essentially what this is, right? This is a help me help you as well. We'll help each other. Um, where do you see the benefits of that relationship to the franchise broker consultant, and what can a franchise emerging franchisor do to come to play the game and do it successfully with the franchise broker?
Well, that's a very, very hard question. I'm going to do my best to answer it, and then give you something that you can do yourself that I wouldn't be charging you for, because then it would go against everything we talked about up until this point. Um, I would say this. I would look at my strategic plan, and I wouldn't worry about being nationwide. I wouldn't, if I'm in Massachusetts or in Maryland, you're in Massachusetts, I'm in Maryland.
Mhm.
If I'm in, if we're headquartered in one of those two places, I'm going to worry about what's in my backyard. That's where I am going to be marketing my franchise. I don't care about Alaska. I don't
Mhm.
care about California. I don't care about any of those things because they don't know me. They can't come visit me. It's harder for them to get to know me, and it's harder for me to get to know them. So
Right.
I'm gonna focus on my area, my sphere of influence, and market within 75 miles of where I am. That's where I'm
Right.
going to market. I am not going to put all my eggs in one basket and only focus on brokers. I certainly would use brokers, but I don't want to be 100% reliant on them for deal flow. So I'm going to be doing my own marketing, um, trying to find people that fit the target profile, what I'm looking for in a franchisee in terms of operational background and in terms of financial wherewithal, how much capital do they have, how much liquidity do they have. I'm going to be doing those two things. And for the brokers that are within my sphere of influence, I'm going to become very, very tight with them. I might not even join the broker network. I might find the brokers that are near me, and because a lot of them will work independently of their broker networks to sell your franchise, and that way I can build confidence with that franchise broker that my brand is investment worthy, and that if they bring me the right candidate and we're going to agree with what that right candidate looks like, that we're going to be able to put a deal together. That will help you overcome some of the obstacles we mentioned earlier.
It's funny because I kind of just came to this realization maybe months later. You talked about kind of identifying a broker or two within a network that seems willing and eager to work with you, and vice versa, and then you can kind of create deals. And you know, I had an opportunity come up where I was contacted by a developer to kind of basically reverse engineer getting a franchisee by, you know, putting a package together and then kind of finding the person, right? Which I think is a unique way to do a deal. Um, but when this fell on my lap, I just said, you know what? Let me call this specific broker who has given me more attention than some others, and let me kind of focus on these one or two brokers who have actually established a relationship with over time. And let's talk just specifically, as opposed to trying to appeal to the whole group. It's like you identify one or two people who are on your side, and once you establish the relationship with them, what I think happens to you, as a counterpoint to kind of what you were saying earlier, is over time, I think the broker becomes less self-interested, because if they can find someone who's interested, who fits your brand, as long as that person um, fits your criteria, but maybe they don't fit criteria of other models, it seems like they're willing to kind of push that person into your brand. And but it's because of the relationship that you've established, probably more so than anything else. And I think that maybe that is a good way to backdoor or back channel that initial, getting them on your sales team as a third party and having them work for you, is really kind of honing in. So I really like that point, because it's something that I think when you sign up with the Brokers Association, it is so easy to get lost because there are so many brokers. There's so many people out there who specializes in what do they offer, what do they do, what do they know, and you just kind of reaching out for everything. But like as time progressed, I realized that, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to focus on like two people who have actually shown some interest in me, you know?
Also, you want people that actually have done deals themselves,
Mhm.
and have a performance record. You know, a lot of brokers. don't sell very many franchises.
I can see that.
It's a secondary business for them, or it's something that they're really in their post career,
Mhm.
or the other spouse is, if they have a significant other, is the breadwinner, and this is something that they do. If they sell one or two a year, they're happy because they cover
Right.
their expenses and they have a little bit of pin money,
Mhm.
and they're good to go on the golf course.
Right.
Uh, Finding those kinds of things out, and they're not going to tell you.
Right.
You're gonna have to develop a relationship with them, and get to the point of a level of trust, and say, "Hey, Micah, how many franchises did you do last year?
Right.
How many deals did you put together?" And if the number is 0 to 2, that's
Yeah.
what does that tell you? And
Yeah.
and you're gonna and if they do get a candidate, do you think they're gonna give it to Micah at MELD, or are they gonna
Right.
give it to somebody that they know that they've done deals with before?
Right.
Um, because
And that's where the
remember,
personal relationship comes in, right, Joe? I assume because
yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I mean, once they have confidence that you're not gonna burn the deal, um, because I mean, I don't want to make it sound like the broker with a candidate only has one shot.
right. Yeah.
That would be inaccurate. They have more than one shot. They can show them, two or three brands, and the person might not pick the very first one. What they're
Mhm.
concerned about is when they show them a brand, and they have such a bad experience that it turns them off on franchising entirely, or says, "Oh, Joe, I can't believe you sent me to that Micah character. What a colossal pile of, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and you know what? And that reflects on you, Joe. So I really didn't enjoy Micah, and I no longer like you, Joe. And we're done.
Get in line, Joe.
Yeah. And one of the things you have to recognize generally in franchise sales, whether it's a lead and a candidate you recruit by yourself, Micah, or you get it from an FSO or from a franchise broker, is it is unbelievably easy for that candidate to fall back to or stick with their status quo.
Mm,
They don't need to buy a franchise. Most people do not need to buy a franchise.
that's
Most
right.
people are already working, or they already have business assets.
Mhm.
Most people can go and find another job. They don't have to risk their home and their nest egg to put into your franchise. And it is unbelievably easy for them to stick with the status quo. In fact, all of their personal friendships and family members are likely telling them, "No, Micah, don't do this. This would be
Yeah.
dumb. Are you
Right.
crazy? You're an engineer and you want to just continue being an engineer where they pay you benefits, you get a 401k. Why in
Yep.
the world would you want to own a MELD?"
Mhm.
Uh,
I can
so,
totally see that conversation.
I mean, that's where that confidence with brokers comes in. But you have to recognize, even with the brokers, you will still have to make the sale.
Right.
The franchisor has to make the sale. And especially in an emerging brand, they're buying into as much the concept of MELD as they are in the founder, Micah, and
Mhm.
what your vision is for this business. They are your early adopters, they're your founding franchisees, and they have to feel um, a kindred spirit with that founder that is different than if you were selling your 100th franchise. It's
Right.
very different because the 100 franchises you've already sold kind of speak for themselves.
Mhm.
And the performance that you have in your item 19 of your franchise disclosure document speaks for itself. At the stage you are with one or two units, you ought to have an item 19. If you don't, I would recommend you get one. Um, but they're really buying into you, and you
So
have
I
to
was
sell.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. You are the development department and the support department. You're everything. I was reading "Grow to Greatness" by Steve Olson. Have you read that book?
I have not.
So it's how to build a world class franchise system faster, right? But here's I think some interesting. And if you're watching this, if you're emerging, I just want to list. There's some things that he lists here as free and low cost lead sources. You mentioned before having an emerging franchisor who has um, maybe a low budget, low budget, no budget, or they've squandered their budget, and maybe they're trying to recapture the ball and get back into the game. So, and tell me what you think about some of these. And I'll just list. I'm not going to list all of them, but just a few. It says trade journals, business brokers. Of course, we talked about that. Franchise opportunity signs and site locations, not least. Packaging materials seen by consumers, local newspapers and business journals, regional opportunity magazines, direct mail and email to organization members and employees, direct mail and email to prior prospects, business and financial planners, bankers, attorneys, politicians, CPAs, business lead exchange clubs, franchisor led exchange groups, entrepreneur clubs and associations, company personnel departments. Would you take anything out of there?
Um, it's a very general list. There are certainly some things on there that are worthwhile. I would, if I were you, I would make sure that how many locations you have open now?
We have one corporate location right now.
Okay, your one corporate location right now. I want to make sure that everybody walking in there knows that this is a franchise that's for sale. Not that particular location. The MELD is a franchise that you too can own. So your branding in there has to be we're a franchise. You have to start acting like you're 1,000 units now. In terms of what your franchise is, because they're buying into a vision. And if you can have it set up there where people can easily take their phone and click on a QR code, even if they're coming in just because it looks nice and they want to check you out, and have it go to a landing page for them to, with some kind of information on it, just to sign up and be able to get on your list. That to me is a brilliant way of doing it, because you're not only talking to your current members, you're not only talking to the people that come in, and the people that can come in can be the guys that are delivering, your Dasani water, the people that are coming in doing the HVAC. Those are all people that you can make an impression on, and they're going to say, I had no idea MELD was a franchise. When did you guys start franchising? And then they're gonna find out. Well, we just started in February. Well, I didn't know that till I saw that QR code that says franchising, own a MELD. So I think that is very good. I would take the majority of the other list and take those categories and start geo-targeting on LinkedIn. Building those types of networking contacts, and the contacts you're going to try to build on a geo-specific basis for your market are going to be the people that could be franchisees, because you've figured out what profiles might fit,
right?
What kind of person has the latent affinity for owning a MELD gym, and the other people that could be referral sources. And you're going to have two different kinds of messaging and two different kinds of funnels for them. And that goes back to like the CPAs and the attorneys and bookkeepers and stuff. They know you're in the market. They may not be very franchise savvy at all. But where you are in Boston is a big franchising town. I mean, Dunkin' Donuts, everybody knows that Dunkin'. I mean, he's made a lot of people a lot of money in Massachusetts for a very, very long time.
4,200 franchises before they even left the region.
Yeah. I mean, and
that is insane.
And it's interesting. They've got a lot of different kinds of subgroups in there of people A lot of Portuguese from the Azores are
Mhm.
franchisees of Dunkin' Donuts in the Northeast in Massachusetts in particular. You've got a lot of Asian subcontinent, Pakistan and India, um, um, uh, in their ranks of franchisees that are multi-unit operators, very, very successful. You just got to find your niche of
Yeah.
what kinds of profiles look good for you becoming a franchisee, and you may actually find people that are franchisees of other kinds of concepts, that this becomes another investment for them in the same market that they are already in, because maybe they can't buy another one of the brands that they already have, or maybe they're looking to diversify and have another complementary brand.
Yeah.
If you owned a vitamin shop, you might be a great candidate to own a MELD. And they're not the same at all, but they are somewhat related, because it's got some of the same health aspects associated with it. You can make for a good story for that, and
Mhm.
stories do sell franchises. Stories, along with a really nice financial picture, can sell a lot of franchises.
It's interesting because I actually originally didn't have a founder story on my sales website, and then I um I put one on there because just doing some research, I found that the whole story thing. People are into connecting with the person who founded the company. They want to believe, they want to connect their core values and their ideals. They want to connect how they feel like the person represents them in the business marketplace, and they want to know that they're getting behind someone who is a ethical leader and and who actually has some business sense. So I ended up putting a founder story on there. I was reticent at first because I'm a private guy in
Mhm.
my regular life, and then I realized that once you get into this world of franchising, then your privacy on some level goes out the window. You have to be more open to the public and in the discussion space. So having conversations like this or on Clubhouse and is not stuff that I don't think I am innately inclined to do because of my desire for privacy, but it is something that I think is necessary so that people can kind of get to know you and endear themselves to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and I will say that one of the things that Clubhouse, I think, has done for a lot of people, it's made them better speakers,
Hmm.
because of the environment, how the rooms are structured, and the limited environment. And there's really only, either you're talking or you're listening. You're doing one or
Right.
the other, and
Yep.
you're either talking and listening on the stage, or you're talking and listening, or you're just listening in the audience. You're not talking if you're in the audience, and I think that has helped people become a little bit more concise, because if you've got 15 people on stage and everybody's talking and everybody takes 10 minutes, that's not going to work out so well. That's not going. You have
Right.
to be very punctuated. I think the other thing that uh, uh, franchise founders at early stages struggle with is that they think putting the founder's story on there or putting videos of themselves on there is bragging.
Mm.
It is, but it's thoughtful bragging. It's telling
Right.
a story within context.
Right.
If you put on, I will kill you if you put videos on there with you and your Lamborghini and your jet. Now that I will get, Micah, I will have to come down there and help you out with that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
uh,
You come
but if
come
you're
repossess it.
if you're talking about your
Right.
actual story about, I opened all these different businesses up. These are my, like we're talking about right now, like,
Right.
the different iterations of MELD, how you got to the model you have now. That's interesting generally, whether you wanted
Right.
to be a franchise or not. It is keenly interested if you're thinking about becoming a franchisee of any
Right.
brand and you're looking for something, and MELD is the one that now appeals to you because I get it. This isn't a fly by night. and he's had a bunch of different iterations of this. It's been an evolution, and they've been around since 2014. That's, they renewed their lease. They renewed a lease, so
Right.
it means that
Yeah,
he believes in it enough to renew his lease.
that's right. That's right. It's funny. It's we didn't even do a renovation until, well, I upgraded equipment and stuff like that, but we did our renovation once we started franchise. We converted to the franchise model, the branding, and all the other stuff. That's when we kind of flipped the script and we kind of did our renovation. And we're like, okay, we're going in, putting money into the renovation so we can do this and focus on this. But yeah, it's like, I think that's a compelling thought, which is, and this is kind of what I'm saying about the gap in knowledge, and really the purpose. Kind of filling the gap in knowledge that franchisors try to do too much and they escape the basics of just, it's relationships, it's getting to know people, it's them getting to know you, it's connecting with people who believe in your mission, want to see it work. And I think those are good basic business principles. And maybe sometimes people overcorrect when they begin franchising and they start doing things that they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah, and I also think it's easy to get sucked into the franchising circus, and you could be going to a franchise event once a month.
Mm-hmm.
You could be going to all of the IFA things, and I think they put on some terrific programs. You could be going to all of the broker network events, and they're terrific parties. And you will go to lots of parties. You will
Right.
eat lots of great food. You will
Mm-hmm.
probably imbibe a little bit too much on adult beverages,
Mm-hmm.
but none of that sells you franchises.
Zero.
Not at all. Not
And at
at
$3,000,
all.
and Joe, at $3,000 a pop at the end of
Yes.
the year, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And people get, early stage franchisors get sucked into that because some of the people that they talk to say, well, you got to go to this conference, you got to go to that conference, you got to meet this guy. You know what? There's a thing called LinkedIn, and there's a thing called Zoom, and
Right.
you could be talking to all these people like Mike and I are talking right now. And
Right.
we might get further ahead because we're talking about what Micah wants to talk about with MELD and what it takes to
Right.
be successful in selling
Mm-hmm.
a franchise. I will say this about you, Micah, that you are actually brave enough to say, you know what? I don't know a lot. There's a lot of gaps here, and it is damned hard to sell your first franchise. Most people
Yeah.
don't even admit that.
I don't even know why. It seems odd to me. It's kind of intellectually dishonest. Not kind of. It is.
The first one is the first 5 are very, very hard.
Right.
It's easy to get distracted because I will tell you this, with your limited resources, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
you, but anybody that's similarly situated as you are as a new brand.
Right. Yeah, sure.
If you sold 5 right now, you know what you'd be doing? You'd be trying to get them open. You would take your eye off the ball in terms of recruiting new people because you'd be so busy trying to onboard the ones that you have that it would. It would stall your sales, but not necessarily stall your growth because you would get those 5 open. But it is, there's some natural and obvious things that happen. I think the biggest thing for emerging franchisors to embrace is that they are in a brand new business that they know very little about. And if you admit that to yourself, you don't have to admit it to anybody else. Just admit it to yourself. You will be able to get through it easier. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you will have an easier time of it because your mind will be open to doing things in ways that you hadn't thought of yet and ways that you have not been exposed to. And I think that is really, really important. Way too many franchisors, take, their best gym manager and make them in charge of the COO. Well, you know what? probably in the long term, that's not going to work. In fact,
Right.
short term, it might suck too.
Mm-hmm.
Or they have a person that was really well. Your gym doesn't do this, but really good at selling training. And they say, oh, if they can sell training, well, golly, they should be able to sell franchises.
Right.
No, they're completely different. One
That's
is
right.
transactional. They're right in
Mm-hmm.
front of you. They're interested in improving their health and becoming fit. Now you're in, and you're going to take them in from your providing them with leads for the now to put them into a situation where they have to get the leads, and then they have to convince somebody to invest in a brand new concept.
Mm-hmm.
There's no synergy there. There's
That's
no
right.
transfer of skills there.
Yep.
So and I see that all the time. We'll get engaged in consulting arrangements, and
Mm-hmm.
usually is with the CEO, and then they give us to their team, and you find out the team, they just learned to spell franchise yesterday, and some of them don't use all the letters.
It is amazing. One of the things I've learned is franchises sold does not mean franchises opened, and that is that's an issue, because as as an emerging franchisor, you want those sold franchises to get open. That is your whole job. You want them
We
producing.
have a name for that.
What's that?
They're called snows.
What is that? Anachronism?
Yeah, abbreviation. Yeah, it's sold not open. SNO, snow. They're called snows.
I like that.
It's not. I didn't make it up. I didn't come up with a word. It's a tried and true a franchising term. Is they have way too many snows. Sold not open. And if you go
I'm
look at
gonna
an
adopt that.
item 20 in an FDD, it shows you
Right.
how many agreements they have signed but have yet to open. And
Yeah,
that is a bad sign.
Franchisors are not getting revenue and cannot ultimately be solvent if they do not open units. They must open units. Those units they need to generate income, produce royalty revenue, and do so at a clip that satisfies the operational budget and revenue needs for the franchise company. I can't imagine moving so fast that I end up sinking my own ship. Right? It's like drinking water from the bottom of the ocean. It's probably not a good thing to do. So, I don't want to keep you too long because we're just over an hour now. But um, so I'm looking to close the gap in emerging franchisors by having conversations like this. I think this is important. This is the first conversation I'm having live, public, on social about emerging franchisors and closing the knowledge gap. We have a roundtable coming up on Thursday evening with a bunch of franchise folks that we're going to kind of continue to develop and address this. If you were to name one or two things to help emerging franchise or close the gap, or that could help a prospective franchisee understand what the benefit is to partnering with someone who is actually maybe an emerging franchisor, maybe less sophisticated clearly than someone who has been franchising, what piece of advice would you give either side of the coin?
Well, we are in a phase that is unique in our time generally, and unique in franchising with technology. The speed of technology out there and new things, what we're able to do with a smartphone that it was unheard of 15 years ago.
Right.
Hell, some of the stuff we can do was unheard of last year. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. Because of the technology that's out there, there are things that really can improve your delivery of services to your franchisees and save money on your general and administrative expense. One of the things that I really love, and we work with our company also works with suppliers, and this is one of the suppliers that we work with, Chain Formation. They basically do all of your deliver all of your ops manual videos and everything that a frontline worker to a general manager to a franchisee needs on their smartphone.
Right.
And it does the compliance checklist. It does a lot of things. And what that means is fewer telephone calls in from a franchisee or from an employee of a franchisee. How do you do this? Because if they can pick up their cell phone or their smartphone and find the information that they need without calling you, by golly, they're going to do that if you make it easy for them to do.
That's right.
And that is a brilliant piece of technology. I love it. I've been through the demo. I've seen what Anders Hall. You'll find him on LinkedIn. It's Anders Anders Hall Hall. Just a brilliant guy. They've had many franchisors on the platform that have continued, and they never leave the platform because it's just a brilliant product. I think that is an example of technology that really works and will save money. And it's one of those things you can do it now. You start with it. You don't. Some things you have to wait to invest in until you get a core group of franchise locations open. This is something you can start with, and it becomes a selling tool to sell more franchises. I think it's one of the most brilliant things out there. You should not miss out on that. You should be talking to Anders tomorrow because it is so brilliant. And could you imagine? Talking to a prospective franchisee. Either that you met at the MELD location in Boston, and they ask you, all right, Michael, what kind of support do you guys provide? And then you take out your phone and you show him or her. That is very powerful. As long as there's something to show them. No, you just show them the program. There actually has to be something. But
that's right.
Digitizing your manual, creating, I'm sure that you have certifications that you train people in different levels of operations at the unit level, putting all of those certifications on there, and now you've got that record tied with that person, and you've now got all of your compliance done. It removes all that paperwork. And the franchise owner loves it because he knows where all of his people are in terms of where they are in their certifications for training as a MELD franchisee. It is just absolutely brilliant. If you've got sales training for the franchisee and their staff, certifying that they've gone through this checklist of the training, and I'm hoping that you actually have really good training. But you can deliver
Me too.
That's for all the franchisees. But I think that is an absolute must-have that I recommend to people all the time. Not because Anders pays us to do that. I just love it. I just think it's a brilliant platform. And
you believe in the product.
I could see the utility of it, and I could see my P&L improve from my general administrative expense as a franchisor, and my franchisees will love me for it. That's all. Enough said. If I get those two things, my G&A and my P&L looks better, and my franchisees love me for it, I'm doing it.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly. And it's funny because I guess I'll end with this, which is, one of the things I had to reconcile with myself was that, I tend to be, I tend to be over, the term over analytical is not necessarily appropriate. There's a level, I tend to want to blow out systems as comprehensively as possible because I like front loading the work, and not that you're not going to do work later, but you understand what I mean by that, which is that you put a lot of effort and energy into creating a comprehensive program and system and overview and all this other stuff. And so I think for my development process initially, I was making it something almost equitable to a company that had hundreds of units. And, one of the things I had to reconcile is, I need to you know, publicly you have to kind of, you mentioned this earlier, is act like you have 1,000 franchisees, which will get kind of spur the interest. But then when you get to the personal interaction piece, you have to function as if you have none, almost, because you want that person to feel like you are with them the entire time and that you can support them and that you're there for them. And so I think the paradox is that I had to like end up going and kind of rewriting things like 5, 6, 7, 10 times because I just could not understand how to write in the interpersonal part of the development process, which is kind of like a nuanced piece of the sales process that is almost uh, unable to be explained through operations, and systems.
I mean, are you talking about the actual sales process of selling a franchise?
The sales process of selling a franchise, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, there are some tried and true phases that buyers go through that you have to understand. Here are 3 immutable things that all franchise buyers must have answered for them in order for them to buy your franchise. And they will ask these 3 questions. Some of these 3 questions they will ask more than once. And the 3 questions are, how much does it cost? They want to know that.
Yep.
They want to know, is my territory available?
Yep.
Can I, if I want to build an empire, can I build, 10 of these, or can I build one 3 blocks from my house? Cause that's where I'd like to have mine. Has anybody spoken for that territory?
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is, how much money can I make? Those are the 3 things. They're immutable, irrefutable. Right. All franchise buyers must get those questions answered. Your job in the franchise sales process is to have a process that's designed in such a way that it can help the franchise buyer move through those mental operations that they need to perform for themselves to give themselves permission to invest in a MELD franchise. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the essence of it.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty hard to do because this process that the mental operations that they need to go through require time.
That's right.
And so you are looking at 60 to 90 days for them to make a decision. If your sales process is talk to them on the phone, tell them how much it is, and then call them back the following day and asking them to buy, that ain't going to work. It's going to fail. It's going to fail. Now, and if it does work, you probably shouldn't do that deal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's probably mafia money or something.
Or you have some. I wasn't thinking along those lines. I was thinking more along lines that this person is just too overly reactive and they're not thinking at all. They're way ahead of themselves. They haven't.
I'm thinking money laundering. You're thinking the person's impulsive. You see where the two fields of thought. I'm thinking this person's Frank Lucas from Harlem in the 70s, laundering money through franchises. And,
you do
might get your approach.
You do have to be concerned about the Patriots Act, and you do have to comply with that as a franchisor. So that is not far-fetched. And I usually get more scared of that kind of thing with the international candidates that want to come in from, like the former Yugoslavia and want to develop in the United States, and you kind of ask them, where's the money coming from? And don't worry, we have it. We have the money. Don't worry, we have lots of money.
Bring it in. bring in the double bag. Yeah, it's no, we don't accept franchise fees like this. Thank you very much. I need a wire. So no, it's Joe, this is great. So we can go on for 2 hours, and I want this to be an hour and change. I want people to come back because we have other things we need to talk about eventually. So let's leave it here. Joe, if a person wants to contact you, get in touch with you, to work with you, if they're a franchisor, if you do that kind of thing? I know you're in development, but I know you're also busy with other projects and things like that. How can someone get in touch with you?
Well, if you're a franchisor and you want to help with your franchise recruitment or developing a franchise sales process built on the foundation that I just described, or you're a supplier and you want to sell your products and services into franchise networks or franchise systems, connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. I am the most connected person in franchising on LinkedIn.
I am the most connected person in France. I like that. That should be in your description.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I've got a lot of things in my description. But in any event, LinkedIn is the absolute best. I am nominally on Instagram. I am on Facebook. Facebook works fine too. My preference is LinkedIn because LinkedIn is where it's actually where franchising is going anyway.
Mm-hmm.
More and more franchise recruitment is going to be on LinkedIn, LinkedIn events, LinkedIn Live, the ability to market, the ability to geo-target. Those are things that all successful franchisors are going to need to know how to do. And that's what we do.
Awesome.
And we'll help people with that. And we're happy to charge for it. We are reassuringly expensive. At the same time, it pays for itself. So
somebody has to be. You can't be middle class your whole life. You got to step it up or step it out.
Yeah. Well, but if it's like, come with me if you want to live.
Yes, exactly. Hey, but you get what you pay for. That is for sure. Joe, you are always a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, we'll talk again on Clubhouse, and I'm going to have you back on because I'm greedy and I just want to rob people who are knowledgeable of their time so that we can all learn better. But good that you recognize that I readily admit that I don't know what I'm doing. so there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a blind pilot flying the plane.
Well, I just hope he has a Braille iPad.
That's right. The controls are in Braille. All right. Thank you for your time today, Joe.
My pleasure. We'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Thank you.